The catastrophic shortage of energy supplies has thrown the commodity market into complete chaos as several nations started to rush to hoard diesel and gasoline amid dwindling inventories and surging prices. On the consumer level, drivers have also been panic buying as fears of fuel rationing continue to rise. The shortfall of critical energy supplies is having serious impacts on food production as well as on the delivery of goods across the country and even on domestic airport operations. The global supply chain stress is only getting worse, and industry insiders are warning that the stage is set for an economic slowdown and a following recession in the United States as fuel price hikes push inflation to extreme levels. Before moving on to today's discussion, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our next videos. The Russia and Ukraine crisis is threatening to collapse the global supply of key energy commodities, especially gasoline and diesel. The world was already struggling with an energy shortage before the conflict began in February, but now the situation has gotten much more alarming than expected, as the price of many leading commodities from wheat to vegetable oils and crude to distillate fuels continues to skyrocket, resulting in multi-decade high inflation rates in several nations. The energy supply crunch is laying the groundwork for rationing, not only of fuels, but of food, as production and deliveries get compromised. Developed nations like Germany, France, and Spain are already taking active measures to ration fuel and some food supplies, with big supermarket chains limiting purchases. In some gas stations in the UK, gas purchase limits are also being introduced as drivers rush to fill up their tanks before new price increases are introduced. Authorities are urging consumers not to panic buy because that will only make shortages worse and price spikes much more acute. In Russia, Putin is calling for calm over shortages, but Russians are apparently ignoring his request. Several videos that emerged on social media this week revealed a very chaotic panic-buying frenzy of food supplies outside supermarkets as the population ran to secure stocks of essentials. Some people were caught on camera stealing supplies straight out of food delivery trucks. Over the past month, Western sanctions implemented against Russia caused the ruble to collapse, dramatically hitting the national economy. Supply shortages started to spread across the country as shipping companies and big brands halted the delivery of goods at Russian ports. Footage has been shared online last week showing locals in the Russian city of Saratov piling up behind a truck to get sugar amid an ongoing shortage of the essential item. In another video, a supermarket worker is seen appearing from the storage room and pushing a shopping cart full of food supplies toward customers. People then start grabbing the supplies in a panic to secure some packages of food before stocks run out. Meanwhile, in Europe, governments have announced the first steps toward rationing diesel and natural gas supplies this week as countries attempt to lower their reliance on Russian energy exports. In the U.S., higher prices for fuels are causing a major headache for drivers, but also resulting in a serious financial burden for local businesses. Adam Willis, the president of trucking company F&W Transportation, said that the latest diesel price increases are pushing the operational costs of his company to soar. Just last week's price to this week's price would cost me about $15,000 difference, he revealed. Diesel gas fuels more than just the trucks here at F&W Transportation, but it's what keeps the entire business afloat. That's why Willis is buying as much fuel as he can before further price hikes. If we buy them today, we're hoping to save a few cents a gallon, he said. The strategy aims to keep service prices stable for his clients. Willis admits that when fuel prices rise this fast, oftentimes the extra costs have to be passed on to the customer. His company handles shipments all across the United States, so when gas and diesel go up, he's forced to hike up shipping costs, which directly impact buyers. U.S. consumers are scrambling to keep up with so many price increases, and many of them are having to use their credit cards to purchase fuel. In fact, recent data showed that consumers spent the most since Christmas on their credit and debit cards last month, as fuel costs hit record levels following the Russian aggression on Ukraine. Data released by the Fed showed that credit card spending on gas in the third week of March jumped by 10% compared to 1 month prior, and 102% compared to 1 year ago. Fuel prices will remain volatile as the conflict escalates. In every corner of the global economy, energy supply shortages are aggravating, but experts are warning that what's going on in gasoline markets is nothing compared to the looming diesel shortage. The entire world is on the verge of an unprecedented diesel shortage, alerted the CEOs of 3 leading commodity trading companies. The systemic shortfall of diesel is already there, cautioned Russell Hardy, CEO of energy trading company Vitol. Executives sounded the alarm about extreme conditions caused by that shortage, which is likely to result in a deep decline in global supplies for the rest of the year, requiring widespread fuel rationing. The diesel market is extremely tight. It's gonna get tighter, Jeremy Weir, CEO of commodity trading house Trafigura, warned. On the same note, Torbjörn Tornquist, CEO of commodity conglomerate Gunvor, also predicted that global energy supplies could remain low until next year, calling the energy market paralyzed at the moment. They argue that Europe is going to be the first to feel the sting of a diesel shortage, but measures to conserve fuel are being advised everywhere, including the U.S., as oil and gas reserves reach dangerously low levels. Way before Russia invaded Ukraine, diesel fuel was in short supply in America due to a drop in global refining capacity. In the U.S., diesel is mainly used for farm and construction equipment, and harvest season has just begun. According to Tom Klotzer, head of global energy research at Opus, the situation has become so severe he calls it a crisis. He says, "I've started to use the term diesel crisis. It clearly is a crisis that is happening before our eyes." And Tom predicts more shortages and also a $6 per gallon price in places beyond California. When you're seeing crude rallying, you've seen diesel outpacing it just because of supply concerns. We're already at 8-year lows for distillate inventories, added Matt Smith, lead oil analyst Americas at Kepler. Gasoline prices at the pump have held steady over the past week, but the price of diesel has continued to rise, gaining about 8 cents per gallon to a national average of $5.12 per gallon, according to the AAA. The national average for unleaded gasoline is $4.23 per gallon, up from $2.86 a year ago, while the price of diesel was $2.03 per gallon cheaper at this time last year. For a truck that needs 125 gallons or more to be filled, that accounts for several $100 extra at every filling, and is leading to higher costs for anyone who buys anything that gets shipped, from food to home goods to electronics and cars. The spread between diesel and motor fuel is the widest it's ever been in the data, pointed out Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, in a recent note. It's $1 a gallon. The average over the last few decades has been 30 to 40 cents. That gives you a sense of how out of balance the market is. By my calculation, 1/10 of the acceleration in consumer price inflation is due to the surge in fuel prices, he continues. The contribution of diesel to good price inflation, including everything from production to shipping, is the greatest. Zandi estimates that 17% of the acceleration of goods price inflation is due to higher diesel costs. Zandi explained, From the farmer plowing the field to getting the food to the store shelf, it's the cost to FedEx and UPS getting the product we're buying to the front porch. All of those ancillary knock-on effects. Diesel is used in farming. It's used in a lot of industrial processes. All the machinery runs on diesel. A lot of construction runs on diesel, noted Francisco Blanche, Global Head of Commodities and Derivatives Research at Bank of America. I think it's very problematic. Trucks run on diesel, trains run on diesel, and planes run on jet fuel, which is also in effect diesel. It does impact the backbone of everything we do, whether it's moving things around the world or harvesting or producing anything in a factory. Almost every human activity has some element of diesel consumption, Blanche said. U.S. airports are already suffering from shortages of fuel, with some facilities urging airlines to carry extra fuel or send in more supplies via tankers. Last week, Austin-Bergstrom International Airport officials warned of an impending jet fuel shortage amid a surge in travel to and from the state's capital city. There hasn't been such an acute fuel shortage since the airport opened in 1999. The Austin typically holds 5 to 7 days of fuel in its stockpile. Now it has less than a day of supply left. At the same time, farmers warned on Friday about diesel shortages potentially hitting the ongoing harvest of soybeans and corn. Several agricultural associations warned in a statement about the lack of diesel needed for tractors and trucks. In recent weeks, diesel has become a scarce resource in various locations around the country, the farm group said in a joint statement. For this reason, we've seen more than notable price rises and scarce availability or rationing. The farm associations are calling for a contingency plan to solve the issue. Otherwise, domestic food production is going to fall to perilously low levels, while food inflation might become a permanent problem. In a note, Zandi mentioned that higher diesel prices spark inflation that is, quote, corrosive to the economy's ability to grow, unquote. The world's businesses run on diesel, and diesel is at record highs and as high as it's ever been relative to motor fuel costs. And that's bleeding into inflation in a meaningful way. That has very negative consequences, he said. To make things worse, the amount of diesel in storage in the U.S. is at an unusually low level. Diesel stocks have declined for the past year and a half and are down by nearly 70 million barrels to the lowest level since 2014, he exposed. Inventories are 20% below the pre-health crisis levels. Right now, the shortage is in diesel and reserves are down to the ground, the expert added. And that could move to gasoline because everyone is going to be maximizing diesel runs. In view of all these disruptions to the global energy supply chains, the Shork Group principal Stephen Shork warned on Thursday that gas prices will explode and create very ugly inflation. He also said that a recession is unavoidable at this point. Every single recession in the United States, beginning with the Arab oil embargo in 1974, was preceded by a massive rise in energy costs, Shork argued. We have never seen a massive rise like we're seeing today, so be prepared for it, he stressed. The pressure on energy supply chains is expected to grow, and shortages are not going to be resolved anytime soon. We must all brace for a lot more turbulence in the weeks and months ahead because global and domestic economic trends continue to deteriorate further with each passing day. We hope you found this report informative. We look forward to your comments and please subscribe to our channel.